Welcome to the African Weekly Roundup, a weekly program every Sunday here on HORUFADHI Media where I discuss the latest news and events across the African continent. I'm Sultan Mohammed, your host and producer here on HORUFADHI Media for this program. We hope you find this very informative. Please like, share, and for similar content, do subscribe to HORUFADHI Media. Also, do subscribe to HORUFADHI Media Group's second channel, known as HORUFADHI TV, where you can find exclusive programs such as Behind the Scenes and Mahahe Saleh. And last but not least, do follow myself, Sultan Mohammed, Suleiman Hashi, Yasin Abdi, and the wider HORUFADHI Media team on our social media platforms that should appear on the screen any moment now. Let's get straight into it, and we kick off in Burkina Faso, where jihadists killed at least 3 soldiers and 8 civilian auxiliaries in an attack Saturday in Burkina Faso's volatile northern region. Soldiers were patrolling with the auxiliaries who were caught in an ambush in the district of Burum. The latest attack comes after a September 30th coup that ousted Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Damiba, who himself seized power in a coup in January of this year. And a day after, 34-year-old Captain Ibrahim Traoré was named as his successor as transitional leader of this country. Now, Traoré has vowed to uphold a pledge that Damiba made for a return to civilian government by July 2024 at the latest. But like Damiba before him, Traoré defended the coup on the grounds that the authorities were failing to do enough against the jihadists. Now, the former leader Damiba fled on October 2nd after a weekend of violent protests that also targeted the French embassy and saw demonstrators raise Russian flags. Political parties, social, religious groups, and representatives of security forces gathered together on Friday to charter the next phase in Burkina Faso's future after the country's latest coup. Now, the forum in the capital was taking place 2 weeks after the jihadist-torn Sahel state was rocked by its second military takeover in less than 9 months. Now, supporters of Traoré are clamoring for him to be the man to lead the country as president, although he has outrightly said he does not want the job. The head of the forum's organizing committee, Colonel Celestine Campore, said the conference will, and I quote, examine and adopt a charter of transition, appoint a transitional president in line with the charter, and receive any proposals for proper execution for the charter. So, who is Burkina Faso's new de facto leader? Now, Captain Ibrahim Traoré was born in Bundukui in western Burkina Faso and studied geology in the capital before joining the army in 2010. He graduated as an officer from the Georges Namono Military School, a second-tier institution compared to the prestigious Kadiogo Military Academy, or PMK, of which Damiba and others in the elite of this country are alumni of. Now, Traoré emerged second in his class, a contemporary told AFP news agency, describing him as, and I quote, disciplined and brave. After graduation, he gained years of experience in the fight against the jihadists. He served in the badly hit north and center of the country before heading to posting in neighboring Mali in 2018 under the UN's peacekeeping mission. He was eventually appointed captain in 2020, and when Damiba took power in January under the coup, ousting elected President Roch Kampore, Traoré became a member of the Patriotic Movement for Preservation and Restoration, or MPSR, the so-called name that the junta chose to call itself. Now, staying in West Africa and the Sahel region, Islamists have advanced further into eastern Mali in recent days, seizing more territory, killing hundreds of civilians and forcing thousands to flee, regional Malian officials and analysts have said. The gains made by the militants highlight Mali's struggle to fill the vacuum following the departure of French forces, while relations with neighboring Nigeria have deteriorated since French forces have now moved to Nigeria, and this has prevented joint military operations near the Nigeria and Burkina Faso borders. Now, heavy fighting between the Tuareg separatists and Islamic State in the Greater Sahara region has been reported in the Menaka region, where Malian forces took over a French military camp in June. Now, hundreds have been killed since March, mainly civilians, as jihadis have battled their way into Menaka, a neighboring Gao region, according to local data. Now, the Islamic State-linked fighters are the major perpetrators of that violence, according to the UN Secretary General's report to the Security Council, released on Thursday of this week. This month, Islamist militants took over the rural and Sonogo district near the border with Nigeria, a local official and pro-government militia have said. Now, thousands of people have fled the towns of Menaka and Gao, where the fighting is currently going on, which is also home to another military base from which Malian troops are battling the insurgency with the help of Russian mercenaries. A coalition of ethnic Tuareg militia groups mobilized its own forces this month to prevent mass killings, looting, and economic destruction in Menaka and surrounding regions, they said in a statement. And the UN has also reinforced peacekeeping patrols in and around Menaka city, where over 25,500 displaced civilians have sought refuge, putting pressure on food, water, farmland, and medical supplies in the region. Now, Mali has faced somewhat instability since 2012, when Islamists militants hijacked the Tuareg rebellion in the northern region. Over to West Africa, where Nigeria has witnessed widespread flooding, which has killed more than 500 people in the country and left around 90,000 homes underwater, blocked from food and fuel supplies, two government ministries said on Friday. The floods have hit 27 of Nigeria's 36 states and impacted around 1.4 million people, the Ministries of Humanitarian Affairs and for Disaster Management said in an online post. Nigerian authorities said flooding caused by heavier than usual rains had been building since early summer and intensified after water releases from the Lagadu Dam in neighboring Cameroon. Now, state oil company NNPC blamed the floods, which blocked a key road out of Lokoja, for a fuel shortage in the capital Abuja. Now, federal road safety officials said the floods had impeded traffic for at least 2 weeks. And across the border in Cameroon, Cameroonian power company Inao said that last month it would release water from the dam between September and October after its own reservoir hit 91% capacity, and this could have directly played a part in the level of floods going on in neighboring Nigeria. Now over to Northern Africa, where thousands of Tunisians demonstrated on Saturday in the capital Tunis, denouncing what they called a power grab by President Kais Saied, and they demanded accountability for the country's long-running economic crisis. Now, Saied staged a power grab in July last year and later pushed through a constitution enshrining his form of government that he saw in what critics have called a return to autocracy in the only democracy to have emerged from the Arab Spring. Protesters in central Tunis chanted "Down, down, revolution against dictator Kais," and the coup will fall. The march was organized by the National Salvation Front, a coalition of opposition parties, including the Islamist-inspired Ittihada that had dominated Tunisia's parliament before its dissolution by the president. Tunisia's former prime minister and a senior Ittihada official told AFP that the protests was an expression of what he called anger at the state of affairs under the current president. Said's welcome to government was supported by some Tunisians tired of what they saw as fractious and corrupt system established after the 2011 revolution that ousted the former dictator. But a worsening economic situation compounded by supply shortages in the wake of the current global crisis has agitated many in the North African country of 12 million people. If it stays, Tunisia will have no future, said the former prime minister, citing growing despair, poverty and unemployment that he referred to. Now, the National Salvation Front has announced it will boycott a December vote to elect a new parliament. And Ittihada's deep ideological rival, the Secular Free Party, also organized protests in the capital on Saturday. Now, some of the protesters carried empty containers to symbolize the rising costs of water due to inflation, which hit 9.1% in September. Around 1,500 people joined the Ittihada-led demonstration, while nearly 1,000 attended the PDL protest, the Interior Ministry told media outlets. In public remarks, Saied has argued that he was working to correct economic troubles he inherited from Tunisia's post-Ben Ali leadership. Now finally over to Uganda, where Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has ordered an immediate lockdown and imposition of a dusk till dawn curfew for 3 weeks in 2 districts in bid to stop the spread of Ebola. Now, places of worship, markets, bars and entertainment will be closed, and restrictions have been placed on movement in and out of 2 central districts of Mubende and Kasanda for 21 days. I now direct as follows. Movements now into and out of Mubende and Kasanda districts are now prohibited, said Museveni in a televised address to the nation on Saturday. If you are in Mubende and Kasanda districts, stay there for 21 days, Museveni said. Now, the health ministry said on Saturday that there have been 19 deaths and 58 confirmed cases of the often fatal viral fever since the outbreak was first reported on September 20th. Authorities said the outbreak is concentrated in the 2 affected districts and has not reached Kampala, the capital of 1.5 million people, despite a husband and wife in the capital testing positive. Now, Uganda president, however, said cargo trucks will be allowed to enter and leave the 2 areas, but all other transport has been suspended. Museveni has also ordered traditional healers in the country to stop treating sick people and ordered the police to arrest anyone suspected of having contracted the virus who refused to go into isolation. Now, outbreaks are difficult to contain, especially in urban centers. Uganda's last recorded death from a previous Ebola outbreak was in 2019. The particular strain now circulating in Uganda, known as the Sudan Ebola virus, for which there is no vaccine. And the World Health Organization has clinical trials and could start within a few weeks on drugs to combat the strain. And that is all the top stories on the African continent this week. Please tune in next week for the weekly roundups of the events across the continent.